People have 3 souls and 6 souls, and ancient immortal methods can be practiced. Long Xingyun was shy from a young age and accidentally obtained a relic and a scripture while traveling with friends. By practicing the immortal techniques in the scriptures, Long Xingyun unraveled the mysteries of the relics, and thus understood his own past and present life through the residual spiritual consciousness in his previous life. From then on, we embarked on the path of cultivation and embarked on a brilliant journey of life. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Strange Dreams. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xingyun, it's time to get up. You'll be late for school. Mom's roar of a lion startled Long Xingyun out of her dream. He reluctantly opened his eyes, struggled to get up from the bed, and began to dress and wash. He was washing up while recalling the dream he had last night, a dream he had frequently had in recent years. This dream is too strange. Although most of the scenes in the dream are different and blurry, the characters in the dream are the same. Although the faces of the characters are also blurry and their appearance is unclear, it can be seen from their physique and temperament that they are the same group of people, several graceful and graceful women. In his dream, Long Xingyun talked and laughed with them, and sometimes even did some shy things. It was obvious that their relationship with Long Xingyun was very close. What confuses Long Xingyun is that he has never seen these women in reality. Long Xingyun has been shy since childhood and occasionally blushes with shyness. Especially in front of girls, she is shy and unable to lift her head. Because Long Xingyun's close friends also gave him a nickname called mimosa grass. And he also doesn't have the habit of watching small movies and pornographic texts. Why did he dream of doing something shy with a girl, and it wasn't once, which left him puzzled. In yesterday's dream, the figure and appearance of a woman suddenly became clear. This made him feel a bit anxious, unsure of what would happen in the coming days. Stinky kid, hurry up. If you don't hurry up, you'll be late. Mom urged Long Xingyun again. Long Xingyun looked at the time and realized that it was a bit tight. He quickly bid farewell to his mother and ran towards the school where he was located. Long Xingyun is studying at the 4th Middle School in Z City. The 4th Middle School is a key high school in Z City, with a good learning environment and very open-minded management, allowing students to attend day classes. Long Xingyun's home is very close to the school, and it only takes a few minutes to walk to the school, so he chose to study day. Grass, wait for me. Long Xingyun didn't need to look back and knew it was his close friend Pang Hu. So he ignored and continued to run wildly. Not long after, there were footsteps coming from behind, and then a pair of chubby arms wrapped around Long Xingyun's shoulders, while a pair of chubby hands weakly grabbed Long Xingyun's neck. Stinky kid, you're too scared to wait for me. Long Xingyun didn't get used to him either. He used his ultimate skill and reached out to Pang Hu's armpit to scratch his itch. He, don't stop scratching, please spare me, buddy, please take it. Tigers don't show off, you think I'm Mimi. Mimi's Mimi, don't think so, everyone, don't call me Mimi. Pang Hu had a loveless expression on his face. Just because Pang Hu has been overweight since childhood, Long Xingyun and his friends gave him the nickname Fat Cat. Later on, I saw an animated film about a little cat fishing, in which there was a cute little cat named Mimi. So I changed the nickname of Pang Hu to Mimi. At first, Pang Hu vowed to die but couldn't resist Long Xingyun and his many companions, so they all surrendered with tears in their eyes. Today, Long Xingyun mentioned his nickname again, and he could only symbolically protest. Long Xingyun ignored Pang Hu and continued walking towards the school. Pang Hu followed helplessly. Hey, have you heard that we're going to transfer a girl to our class today? You have very good news. Don't you see who I am? I am a famous second-generation wealthy person. Not to mention, Pang Hu is a wealthy second-generation. Pang Hu's father, Pang Zhonghua, is a famous commercial tycoon in Z City, even ranking high in the province. In fact, with the economic conditions of the Pang Hu family, Pang Hu can attend better schools and even receive transportation. But Pang Hu has been playing with Long Xingyun and the others since he was young, and he couldn't bear to part with them. With his efforts, he went to the same school as Long Xingyun and the others. I don't know if the girls are pretty either. Pang Hu continued to say, what does it have to do with whether you're pretty or not? Do you, a toad, want to eat swan meat? How come, can't I think about it? What if a swan likes me, a toad? Grass, people need ideals, you know. Okay, take your time thinking about it. But if we don't hurry up, we'll be late. I don't want to be scolded by old Meng, hurry up. After speaking, he took the lead and rushed towards the school. Pang Hu thought about it and quickly followed Long Xingyun, taking big steps to follow him. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. First meeting of the Dream Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Long Xingyun and Pang Hu walked into their classroom while playing and pinching points. They had just finished their homework when the homeroom teacher, Teacher Meng, walked into the classroom with a cold and beautiful-looking girl. Long Xingyun and Pang Hu secretly rejoiced that they had entered the classroom earlier, otherwise they would have been caught. Classmates, today there is a new student in our class named Li Mei. Everyone applauds and welcomes her. Teacher Meng stood in the middle of the podium and said, "Come on, Li Mei, introduce yourself and let your classmates get to know you better." When the applause fell, Teacher Meng said again, "Good teacher. Hello classmates, my name is Li Mei, Musi Li, Plum Blossoms Plum comes from the capital city. Please take good care of me in the future." Li Mei's voice was as cold as her face. After a brief self-introduction, she returned to Teacher Meng's side. Teacher Meng didn't expect Li Mei's self-introduction to be so concise, but she didn't force it either. Okay, then. I believe everyone will become more familiar in the future, and I also believe that Li Mei will gradually integrate into our class collective. Our class will become a mutually supportive and positive collective. Alright, let's start our class. Later, Teacher Meng designated a seat for Li Mei and began teaching. But at this moment, Long Xingyun's heart was extremely restless, and his mind was buzzing. How could it be like this? He kept repeating in his heart. The reason why Long Xingyun was so shocked was that Li Mei's face was exactly the same as the woman whose face became clear in his dream. He always thought that the woman in his dream was illusory. But how could he not be shocked when Li Mei, who looked the same as the woman in his dream, appeared in front of him today? This caused him to be confused throughout the whole class, and Teacher Meng didn't hear anything clearly. Careful Teacher Meng clearly noticed something unusual about Long Xingyun, reminding him several times in a class. This caused Long Xingyun's face to turn red during a class, and his head was even lower, almost leaning against the desk. It was easy to endure until the end of class, and Long Xingyun couldn't help but breathe a sigh. At this moment, his close friends gathered around him and asked about Long Xingyun's situation with various tongues. "What's wrong, buddy? With such a red face, someone has cooked it." Pang Hu, a desk mate and friend, joked. "I think it's teenage nostalgia." Xiao Wei, nicknamed Glasses, pushed the glasses on his nose and joked along. "Is that right? I have a crush on someone, and it's up to you, young master." The nickname Gao Xing from the Yamen added fuel to the fire. Immediately after, other friends also kept asking questions. Long Xingyun knew that his friends were well-intentioned, but he couldn't explain the situation to them, so he evaded it by not sleeping well last night. He was troubled by this matter for the whole day afterwards. "I didn't even figure it out when I got home." His parents also noticed the abnormality of Long Xingyun and began to care and ask for warmth. But after asking for a while without finding a reason, I just let it go. In the blink of an eye, more than a month has passed and Li Mei has become familiar with her classmates. Although she has a cold personality, she is not a proud person, so she has also made some friends. And Long Xingyun naturally became curious about Li Mei, the dreamer, so he approached Li Mei for various reasons, and Li Mei did not reject contact with him. And his bold behavior moved his friends, thinking that he liked Li Mei, and divided them into him secretly standing up big thumbs. Long Xingyun did not explain to them, and the explanation was also unclear. It seemed like in the blink of an eye, it was time for Long Xingyun and his team to start their summer vacation. Pang Hu and the others made an appointment to travel to Mount Putuo. Pang Hu encouraged Long Xingyun to go together, and he was responsible for all the expenses of Long Xingyun. Long Xingyun and Pang Hu are extremely close, and Pang Hu's family is extremely wealthy, with travel expenses just like an ordinary person buying an ice cream. So Long Xingyun did not flirt with Pang Hu and agreed to his request. In the following days, Long Xingyun and his companions began to prepare for the trip. Once they were ready, they immediately went on a vacation. Of course, they have to greet their parents well. Their parents did not intervene too much. Firstly, they are all young men of 16 or 17 years old. Secondly, with the peace and security in the world, it is very reassuring for them to travel alone. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. Lotus Pond Night Moon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Long Xingyun and his team eagerly awaited each other, they finally had summer vacation. Of course, Teacher Meng couldn't help but patiently advise for a while, such as, pay attention to safety when going out to play, and read more books and learn more at home. The phrase, candles burn out before tears dry, was vividly reflected by Teacher Meng. After Teacher Meng said, we're on vacation, Long Xingyun and his classmates, although not excited and cheering, were all smiling. Turning around, the prepared Dragon Cloud and the others began their journey to Mount Putuo. Mount Putuo is located in the Zhoushan Islands in the eastern waters of China and is one of the 4 major Foshan cities in China. The full name of Mount Putuo is Mount Putuo Luojia. It is the dojo of Guanyin Bodhisattva and a national 5A level scenic spot. It is known as the Sea and Sky Buddha Kingdom and the Holy Land of the South China Sea. Especially on the 19th day of the 2nd lunar month, the 19th day of the 6th lunar month, and the 19th day of the 9th lunar month, which is the birthday of Guanyin Bodhisattva, the day of enlightenment, and the day of preaching. Buddhists from all over the world have gathered at Mount Putuo, and by then it can truly be called the flourishing age of Buddhism. When Long Xingyun and his companions arrived at Zhoushan City near Mount Putuo, it was already evening. They decided to stay at a hotel in Zhoushan City and planned to go to Putuo Mountain again tomorrow morning. The next day, before the sun came out, Long Xingyun and his companions set off for Mount Putuo. As we approach Mount Putuo, it is the time of the rising sun in the east. From a distance, the mountains are undulating, and pavilions above the peaks are faintly visible. All of this is illuminated by the sunlight and dyed with a faint layer of golden light. Dang dang, a melodious bell rang, followed by waves of chanting scriptures. The Buddhist imagery rushed towards us. Long Xingyun and his companions couldn't help but feel a shock in their hearts empty and clear, as if all worldly troubles were forgotten, and their hearts were filled with joy. This makes them feel that this trip is worth it. Not long after, they arrived at the first scenic spot, Short Ant Holy Site, which was also called Short Ant Dao Tu. Through the tour guide's explanation, Long Xingyun and his companions learned that this is the place where Guanyin Bodhisattva appears. Legend has it that a long time ago, there were 2 sisters-in-law who rowed a boat up the mountain to offer incense and worship. Unfortunately, when I arrived here, my sister-in-law had just arrived at Tiankue, menstruation, and felt dirty and ominous. She immediately asked her sister.in.law to go up the mountain alone to offer incense. My sister.in.law complained a few words to my sister.in.law, and then went up the mountain alone to worship. At noon, the tide rises and the small boat moves away from the shore. At this moment, the sister.in.law was both thirsty and hungry, and the food and water were taken away by her sister.in.law. She couldn't get off the boat to search for food to satisfy her hunger. Just as she was starving and thirsty, a graceful and kind-looking woman descended from the mountain, holding a food box in her hand. As we approached the small boat, we brought a few stones from the shore and put them into the sea. Then the woman stepped on the stones and came to the ship. The woman told her sister.in.law that she was afraid of hunger, so she asked her to send some food to her. Then the woman put down her food and left the ship. My sister.in.law didn't think much and picked up food to satisfy her hunger. Shortly after, my sister.in.law returned from her worship, and my sister.in.law brought up this matter. My sister.in.law couldn't help but be surprised, saying that she didn't send anyone to deliver the meal. However, my sister.in.law suddenly remembered that before she went down the mountain, she had looked up at the Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva's Dharma appearance and found that the Bodhisattva's clothes were wet from the hem. It was only then that I realized it was Guanyin Bodhisattva who recited his sincerity and became a saint, offering food to his sister.in.law as a reward. Since then, it has been passed down from generation to generation that this place has become a holy site. And because my sister.in.law once blamed and complained about my sister.in.law here, all future generations called this place the holy site of my sister.in.law. After listening to the tour guide's explanation, Long Xingyun and his companions couldn't help but secretly marvel in their hearts. Later, Long Xingyun and his companions followed the tour guide and continued to explore other scenic spots on Mount Putuo. In the evening, Long Xingyun and his companions planned to stay overnight after visiting Puji Temple. Because there is a famous night scene called Lotus Pond Night Moon here. Lotus Pond Night Moon is the night view of Xingyun Pond, in front of Puji Temple. The sea seal is the name of the three flavors of Buddha. As the sea can gather water from all rivers, the vast sea of Buddha's wisdom can imprint and reveal all the laws of the universe. After finishing the unique vegetarian food in Puji Temple, Long Xingyun and his companions came to the side of Xingyun Pond and began to admire the beautiful moonlight in the pond. Xingyun Pond is surrounded by mountains on three sides, with ancient camphor trees towering in the sky around it. The lotus flowers in the pond stand tall and graceful, and the emerald green lotus leaves sway with the gentle breeze. At this moment, the bright moon is in the sky, the lake surface is shimmering with silver light, waves of lotus fragrance are fluttering on the face, and behind me, the sound of evening drums and Sanskrit sounds is intermittent. What a holy land of Buddhism! At this moment, even Pang Hu and Gao Xing, who usually giggle and laugh, put away their image as second-generation ancestors in this Buddhist realm and began to quietly appreciate this charming scenery. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4. Golden Body Dharma Appearance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A long time later, Long Xingyun and his companions returned to their place of residence, still unsatisfied. Pang Hu and the others, who had been playing for a day, fell asleep on the bed when they arrived at their residence, but Long Xingyun couldn't fall asleep for a long time. He simply stood up, did not startle Pang Hu and the others, and returned to the side of Xingyun Pool to admire the scenery. It is already late at night, and there are no more tourists by the pool, but it is more convenient for Dragon Cloud to enjoy the night view of Xingyun Pool. The carefree Dragon Cloud roams around the Xingyun Pool, admiring the charming scenery from various angles. Just as he was immersed in the moonlight, waves of chanting came from the distant mountains to the ears of the Dragon's clouds. It's so late, there are still people reciting scriptures and worshipping Buddha. It's really devout. Who is so devout? Long Xingyun couldn't help but feel curious in his heart. Well, go take a look. Long Xingyun made up his mind and walked towards the mountains following the chanting of scriptures. After turning around the foot of a mountain and passing through a bamboo forest, Long Xingyun stood in front of a wooden house. He looked around and found no other houses. He looked at the wooden house again, which was antique in color. There was a plaque hanging above the door, with the two golden characters, Zen rites, written on it. At this point, Long Xingyun hesitated because he appeared very abrupt when he came uninvited, and he was afraid of disturbing the owner here rashly. Just as he hesitated, the chanting of scriptures in the room suddenly came to an end, and then an old voice came out from inside. If a distinguished guest arrives, it is fate. Please come in and have a chat. Long Xingyun obtained the owner's permission and without further thought, pushed open the door and walked in. The wooden house didn't look very big outside, but Long Xingyun only realized inside that the space inside was huge. Entering the room, the first thing that catches the eye is a huge incense burner, which burns 3 high incense sticks. Waves of sandalwood fragrance rushed towards one's face, shaking one's heart and mind. Behind it is a high wall, with a huge, Buddha, character that catches the eye. The font is ancient and simple, with a sparkling golden light that touches people's hearts and minds. On top of other walls, countless Buddhist scriptures are engraved. On one side of the house, several cattails were randomly placed on the ground. On one of the cattails, an elderly monk was looking up and down at the dragon's clouds. Long Xingyun quickly stepped forward and said, "I apologize for disturbing you late at night." "It doesn't matter, those who come are all fate." The monk smiled and said, "Your esteemed guest, please take a seat." Long Xingyun sat on a cattail without any courtesy. Then he looked around the room and asked in confusion, "Master, you must be an extremely devout person who recites scriptures and worships Buddha late at night. Why is there no Buddha statue enshrined in the house?" "Your esteemed guest is unaware that my Buddha has countless Dharma forms, and it may seem inappropriate to offer only one of them, so I only offer one Buddha character. This is actually the same as Taoism worshipping heaven and earth. May I ask if there are any gods or Buddhas in the world?" Long Xingyun continued to ask. This question should be asked to yourself. Do you believe in gods and Buddhas? Isn't there a saying that goes, if you believe, there is something, if you don't believe, there is nothing? Then the two of them chatted casually. Through chatting, Long Xingyun learned about the monk's Dharma name, Xuanzi, who is a Buddhist practitioner. At the end of the conversation, Xianxi raised her eyebrows and smiled at Long Xingyun, saying, "I wonder if your esteemed guest is interested in listening to me recite a Buddhist scripture." "The greatest honor." Long Xingyun quickly responded. Upon hearing this, Xuanzi was overjoyed and immediately took out a Buddhist chime. With a clang on the chime, he began reciting Buddhist scriptures. Long Xingyun slowly closed his eyes and began to listen attentively to Xuanzi reciting the scriptures. Slowly, the noise of the real world moved away from his mind, leaving only the sound of reciting scriptures in his ears. Suddenly, golden lotus flowers appeared before Long Xingyun's eyes. As time passed, the golden lotus flowers filled the world in Long Xingyun's eyes, and the chanting of scriptures in his ears grew louder and louder. Immediately after, a golden light enveloped Long Xingyun's body. Long Xingyun's body immediately shimmered with gold, and in an instant, it filled his entire body. The illusion did not stop here, and a colorful halo appeared behind Long Xingyun. The halo was immense, and there were countless anomalies inside. Xuanzi had already stopped reciting scriptures and stared blankly at everything from the side. Golden body technique, I didn't expect to see it in the mortal world. It's really a worthwhile trip. It took a long time for the illusion to slowly dissipate. Long Xingyun slowly opened his eyes and found Xuanzi looking at him with a shocked expression. He couldn't help but wonder, what's wrong with Master? Is there anything wrong with me? Haha, there's nothing wrong with you, on the contrary, you're perfectly right now. May I ask your esteemed guest, how did you feel while listening to me recite the scriptures? Is there anything you can share with me? Long Xingyun did not conceal anything and told Xuanzi everything he heard and saw. The pure land of Lotus also appears on this child. It seems that this child has a deep connection with my Buddha. Xuanzi sighed inwardly. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. Sacrificial Relics. You are listening at novel-full.audio. Master, what I just saw wasn't an illusion, was it? Long Xingyun hesitated and said. Why, don't you even believe what you see with your own eyes? It's not that I don't believe it, but what I see is inevitably a bit unbelievable. This is unbelievable to you. If I tell you what happened to you just now, you will be even more incredulous. Immediately, Xuanzi told him all the various visions that had appeared on Long Xingyun just now, in detail. Long Xingyun was stunned for a while after listening. He, who received modern education, always thought that those immortals, ghosts, and monsters were fake. But what he saw in his eyes today and what Xuanzi told him completely overturned his beliefs. Xuanzi silently watched Long Xingyun beside him without disturbing him. Long Xingyun took a long time to digest before accepting reality. Your esteemed guest, from what has happened to you, it seems that you have a deep connection with my Buddha. I wonder if your esteemed guest has any plans to practice Buddhism. Practicing Buddhism. I'll just forget it. Long Xingyun hesitated for a moment and refused. Although practicing Buddhism tempted him a lot, he didn't want to shave his head, as he would be laughed at by his friends. There is also a single lineage of Long Xingyun, and his parents still hope that he can pass on the family line, so he did not hesitate to refuse Xuanzi. Xuanzi didn't expect Long Xingyun to refuse. He believed that such opportunities were rare and no one would refuse. He couldn't help but ask Long Xingyun for the reason. After learning the reason, Xuanzi laughed heartily. Your esteemed guest clearly has a misunderstanding about practicing Buddhism. Shaving one's head and receiving the precepts is certainly a form of ritual practice, but one can also practice with hair. Getting married, having children, and reproducing offspring are allowed by the heavenly way. Buddhism is not about abstaining from marriage, but about abstaining from excessive debauchery. Ladies and gentlemen, please accept this statement. The world where this book is located is very different from the real world, and all are necessary for the plot. If there are any offenses, please understand and accept the opinions of others. If that's the case, I definitely want to practice Buddhism. After listening to Xuanzi's explanation, Long Xingyun excitedly said. Who is willing to lose the opportunity to practice? Xuanzi nodded at this scenic spot and felt very pleased. Then he took out a Buddhist scripture from his arms and handed it to Long Xingyun with both hands. At the same time, he said, this Heart Sutra is not a profound Dharma, but it is still helpful for you to embark on the path of cultivating Buddhism. You will definitely achieve something if you take it back and focus on cultivation. Long Xingyun heard that it was not a secret scripture of divine powers, but an ordinary scripture. Although he was slightly disappointed, he still thanked him while taking the scripture. He took the scriptures without carefully examining them and placed them in his arms. He looked up at Xuanzi and murmured inwardly, he said I have a connection with the Buddha, and he also said that my vision is amazing. Why did he only send me the scriptures but have no intention of taking me as his disciple? Opportunities are rare, I can't miss them. I have to take the initiative. Thinking of this, he stood up and walked up to Xuanzi, saying, Master, I wonder if I can worship you as my teacher. After speaking, I must give a deep bow to Xuanzi. No way. Xuanzi seemed to be startled and jumped up from the dough, avoiding Long Xingyun's salute. Long Xingyun was startled and said to himself, Are you so excited? Xuanzi also felt that his behavior was too extreme, but there were some things that he couldn't openly discuss with Long Xingyun. He could only organize some words in his heart and speak to Long Xingyun. It's not that I don't want to take you as an apprentice, but our Buddhism emphasizes fate and law, and we don't have a master-disciple relationship with you. And I'm not qualified to be your master either. You'll meet your master in a while. It's really fake, isn't he deceiving me? Forget it. Looking at him like this, it's hard for me to worship him as a teacher anymore. There's nothing left to cherish, then I'll go back. After thinking it through, Long Xingyun said to Xuanzi, Master, I've been bothering you for a long time. I should also go back now. Can I give you a hug before leaving? Okay, we'll see each other again when we meet. Xuanzi did not refuse Long Xingyun's request this time, and took the initiative to walk up to Long Xingyun and hug him. When Xuanzi and Long Xingyun embraced, Xuanzi's chest suddenly lit up and flickered with light and darkness. Xuanzi was taken aback and took off a brocade bag tied with colorful silk threads from his neck. The bright light came from inside the brocade bag. Then Xuanzi took out a quail egg-sized stone from her purse, with a smooth surface as smooth as a jade oval shape. The stone is shrouded in a layer of colorful halo, in which the light flickers rapidly and sways slightly towards the direction of the dragon cloud. Xuanzi, seeing this scene, although very reluctant, still handed the object to Long Xingyun and placed it in his hand. And he explained to Long Xingyun, this object is called a relic, which was left by the great power of the ancient immortal period. It was left to me by my master before his enthronement. He said that this object contains a huge secret, and if we can understand it thoroughly, it can help people become gods and saints. However, this object has never changed in my hands. It took me a lifetime to comprehend it, but I was unable to fully comprehend it. I didn't expect to meet you today, but this thing shines brightly. This is something that has never happened to me before. It seems that this thing is destined for you. Take it with you and leave together. Long Xingyun knew that this item was valuable, how dare he accept it? He refused in every way. It was not until Xuanzi became angry that Long Xingyun accepted the relics and bid farewell to Xuanzi, returning to his base from the original path. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. Heart Classic. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Long Xingyun returned to his residence, Pang Hu and the others were still sleeping soundly and did not notice Long Xingyun's departure. And since being carried by Long Xingyun, the relics have regained calmness, which can't help but make Long Xingyun feel relieved. He was also afraid of bringing back a shining stone, which would not be easy to explain to Pang Hu and the others. After all, what he encountered today was quite mysterious and difficult for ordinary people to accept. Long Xingyun saw that it was not early, so he lay in bed intending to take a nap. According to the experience of this night, Long Xingyun has been in a state of mental excitement, and it is difficult for others to fall asleep if they encounter such situations. But as soon as Long Xingyun lay down on the bed, he fell into a deep sleep. This was because the relics on his body constantly stabilized his mind, and the coolness seeped into his organs through his skin, allowing him to quickly enter a state suitable for sleep. The next morning when he woke up, he found that he didn't wake up too late than Pang Hu and the others, and he also noticed any discomfort, although he only went to bed very late. He knew it was all thanks to the relics. At Mount Putua, Long Xingyun and his companions played for more than half a day before finally returning home satisfied in the evening. It was already very late to return home, and Long Xingyun's parents had already rested. He didn't disturb his parents, simply washed himself up, and then returned to his own room. He eagerly took out his relics and scriptures. During the day, due to the presence of Pang Hu and his companions, Long Xingyun did not have the opportunity to inspect. Now he is the only one in the room, and he needs to study and study carefully. Of course, what Long Xingyun is most interested in is the relics. When he left, Xuanzi once told him that there is a big secret in the relics, and unlocking the secret can help people become saints. Although he knew in his heart that the secret of unlocking the relics himself was very small. But he still had a bit of luck in his heart. What if he had a bad luck and solved the secret, wouldn't he have developed? He picked up the brocade bag containing the relics, which was given to Long Xingyun by Xuanzi along with the relics. Opening the brocade bag, Long Xingyun took out the relics and carefully examined them in front of him, without any abnormalities. He looked at the light again and found that the light could not penetrate the relics, nor did he notice anything special. He put the relic in his mouth again to see if it could be absorbed by himself. After a long time, I realized that there was no change and could only reluctantly spit out the relics from my mouth. He also thought of some novels and movies, where some artifacts require blood to recognize their owners. He immediately found a needle to sew clothes, intending to prick his finger and drip some blood on the relic. It's easy to think about, but it's quite difficult to implement because not everyone can do this kind of self-harm behavior. After making a long decision, Long Xingyun closed his eyes and ruthlessly said to himself, "I can't bear to part with my child, I can't get a wolf. Only by marrying a wife can I have a mother. Law." Immediately, he forcefully pricked his middle finger with a needle, and blood immediately burst out. Long Xingyun grinned in pain and quickly dripped his blood towards Shilizi. But as soon as the blood approached the relics, it was bounced away, indicating that the blood-dropping Lord recognition operation had ended in failure. After pondering for a while, he realized that some special items needed to be checked by spiritual consciousness, but he hasn't practiced yet. Where did he get spiritual consciousness? After tinkering for half a day without finding any results, he could only reluctantly give up. I knew this was the result. Long Xingyun secretly mocked himself in his heart. He thought again, if the secret of Shilizi could be so easy to unravel, how could he still turn to him? Perhaps Xuanzi had already unraveled Shilizi's secret. Thinking of this, Long Xingyun tidied up his mood and put the relics into his brocade bag, putting them back on his body. He lifted his hand and picked up the scripture to examine it closely. He saw that the scripture was the size of an ordinary book, with only a thin dozen or so pages. The pages were made of an unknown material, similar to paper, but soft and not easily damaged. The cover of the scripture only has the 2 golden characters, Heart Sutra, and the font is simple and strong. The content of the scripture is simple, with only 2 spells and dozens of seals. In addition, there are methods of cultivation and areas to pay attention to during cultivation. The 2 spells are Qingxin mantra and Mingxin mantra, each with 300 to 400 words. 2 spells can be practiced separately or together. After cultivation, one can improve their memory and comprehension. Upon seeing it, Long Xingyun realized that this was exactly what he needed the most now. Due to Long Xingyun's extremely poor memory and comprehension, his learning has always been poor, and he is the bottom performer in their class alongside Pang Huguioxing. However, Long Xingyun's parents have high hopes for him, hoping that he can be admitted to a decent university and honor his ancestors. But this invisibly intensified Long Xingyun's pressure, and he was a filial child who did not want to disappoint his parents. So he studies hard at school every day, but due to his limited memory and comprehension, he can only barely keep up with the pace of the teacher's lectures. Long Xingyun knew that without a miracle, it would be difficult for him to get into university, and even an ordinary university would be difficult for him to bridge the gap. But today, God placed this opportunity to change his life in front of him. How could he not be excited? He secretly made up his mind that no matter how difficult it was to practice the spell, he would definitely succeed. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. Cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Long Xingyun carefully examined the details of his cultivation and found several difficulties for him. The first point is to remember the mantra and be able to recite it continuously in your heart. Remembering a few hundred words of incantation may not be difficult for others, but for Long Xingyun, whose memory is extremely poor, it is as difficult as climbing to the sky. The second point is the method of sealing. Although the scriptures have explained it in great detail and it is not difficult, Long Xingyun can still barely achieve it. But only being able to seal is not enough. He also needs to remember which words of the spell match each seal, not only synchronize the spell and seal, but also be coherent and uninterrupted. This undoubtedly adds difficulty to Long Xingyun. And all of the above have been achieved, just the preliminary stage of practicing spells. Without careful consideration, Duohui can subconsciously complete spells and seals, achieving divine action to seal them, which is considered a complete success in practicing spells. The difficulty of practicing spells did not make Long Xingyun retreat, but instead ignited his ambition to overcome difficulties. After preparing to practice the spell, he disregarded the tiredness of playing during the day and the slightest drowsiness, and began to memorize the spell time and time again, practicing the seal over and over again. As time goes by, Long Xingyun sometimes inevitably becomes restless and irritable. At this moment, the relics will emit waves of coolness, stabilizing the dragon's mind and spirit. With the help of the relics, Long Xingyun became more focused when practicing spells. Slowly, Long Xingyun forgot about time and everything. I don't know how long it took, but Long Xingyun finally met the preliminary conditions for practicing spells. He couldn't help but feel great joy in his heart, restrained his mind, sat cross-legged on the bed, and began practicing spells. At the beginning, the seal technique of Long Xingyun was very slow. But with the passage of time, Long Xingyun's printing technique became more and more proficient. Slowly, inexplicable energy surged around Long Xingyun, and a strand of energy was sucked into his body, subtly transforming his body and brain. The influx of energy washed away the fatigue on Long Xingyun's body, but by this time Long Xingyun had forgotten all of this and his mind had been focused on cultivation. Later on, Long Xingyun forgot about the time and even practiced automatically based on his consciousness, reaching the pinnacle of practicing spells. The rapid progress of Long Xingyun's cultivation is thanks to the help of the relics, which allows Long Xingyun to focus on his cultivation without any distractions. If conditions permit, Long Xingyun really wants to continue practicing like this. But reality does not allow him to continue practicing like this. The next evening, Long Xingyun was awakened by his parents knocking on the door and withdrew from his cultivation state. My parents, who used to work all day, returned home and found that the food prepared for Long Xingyun in the kitchen had not changed. They knew that he had not eaten all day, so they were worried about his safety. Long Xingyun did not tell his parents the truth. Regarding the matter of practicing Buddhism, he knew that his parents would definitely find it difficult to understand. He wants to confess to his parents when it's appropriate in the future. So he covered it up by saying that he was tired from going out to play and didn't want to walk. Long Xingyun's parents didn't think much and instructed him to take care of the household chores after a few words. After dinner, Long Xingyun told his parents that he wanted to study and not disturb him. At the same time, he instructed them not to call him the next morning, as he wanted to sleep in. Then he crawled into the room and began practicing. Compared to his first practice, Long Xingyun quickly entered a state of forgetfulness during his second practice. Not long after, Long Xingyun forgot everything and his mind fell silent, entering a state of selfless meditation. The next noon, Long Xingyun was reminded by the alarm bell he had set and withdrew from his cultivation. He came to the kitchen and ate something casually. He doesn't want his parents to worry about him anymore. After finishing lunch, he realized that time was limited and he didn't continue practicing. But instead, take out a book and start reviewing the knowledge you have learned before. Without reviewing, he doesn't know that he can now understand some of the knowledge he previously didn't understand at all. The formula for words that he used to be unable to remember, but now with his hard work, he can actually remember a few. This made him ecstatic, knowing that it was the spell at work. From then on, Long Xingyun started practicing every day after dinner. After lunch, sometimes he reviewed his homework, and sometimes he went out to play with Pang Hu and the others, and his time was very fulfilling. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Primordial Spiritual Consciousness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2 months have passed in the blink of an eye, and Longxing Cloud has undergone earth-shaking changes. Firstly, Long Xingyun's height has increased from 1.6 meters to 1.75 meters, almost 10 centimeters. Moreover, his temperament has become warm and approachable, his figure has become tall and slender, his eyes are much brighter than before, and his whole person has become more confident. His learning has made rapid progress. After 2 months of effort, Long Xingyun has reviewed all the knowledge he had previously learned and understood them. His memory has reached a level that is unforgettable, and his comprehension ability can be compared to 10. Although these changes brought great joy to Long Xingyun, they made him even more ecstatic than the continuous improvement of his cultivation. After 2 months of endless cultivation, Long Xingyun's cultivation has reached the peak of his current level. With his progress in cultivation, it won't be long before he can break through to the next level. He was somewhat regretful that although he had been practicing for 2 months, he still knew very little about the cultivation of Buddhism, and he had no knowledge about the division of the cultivation realm. He regretted not talking too much about this issue when talking to Xuanzi. However, he didn't take this matter to heart much either. He knew he would definitely be able to come into contact with these things in the future, and it was only a matter of time before he learned about these cultivation knowledge. After finishing dinner that day, Long Xingyun entered his own room and began practicing as usual. With the improvement of Long Xingyun's cultivation level, he absorbs energy much faster than before, and the energy around him is like a heavenly dragon absorbing water, being sucked into his body and mind by Long Xingyun. At this moment, there is an inexplicable space in Long Xingyun's mind, where the sea of mist churns endlessly. This is Long Xingyun's consciousness space. Although the capacity of Long Xingyun's consciousness space has reached its limit at this time, there are still billions of energy constantly pouring in. The sea of mist in the consciousness space cannot help but intensify and constantly compress and merge. Suddenly, the sea of mist in the consciousness space seemed to be compressed to the extreme, exploding in all directions with a loud bang, and the consciousness space expanded more than 10 times. And in the consciousness space, the sea of mist disappeared, and many droplets of liquid appeared in its original position. The liquid churned around and ran rapidly along a mysterious trajectory. The consciousness space has successfully transformed into a spiritual space, and the consciousness in the form of mist inside has also risen to spiritual consciousness. At the moment when his spiritual consciousness was first formed, the energy outside Long Xingyun shook, and a halo appeared around his body. All objects within half a meter of the surroundings were reflected in his heart, even clearer than what he could see with his eyes. And the situation inside him also reflected in his heart. The rapid movement of spiritual consciousness in the spiritual space, the crystal clear bones, the healthy and vigorous heart, the dense and varied blood vessels, the bright red blood flowing to various parts of the body, and the healthy movement of the 5 organs and 6 organs, all of which were clearly visible in his heart. The appearance of these strange scenes caused Long Xingyun's emotions to fluctuate, almost causing him to withdraw from his cultivation state. Fortunately, with the help of the relics, he stabilized his mind and continued to cultivate. Through the reflection of spiritual consciousness, Long Xingyun also discovered that there were many meridians scattered throughout his body, with some inexplicable energy flowing slowly inside. These energies followed a special path of elimination in the meridians as he practiced. Moreover, Long Xingyun was pleasantly surprised to find that he could control the speed of energy flow. The faster the energy flow, the faster his cultivation level improved. He immediately accelerated the flow of energy, but he soon realized that if it ran too fast, it would be difficult for him to control the path of energy flow, which posed a risk of going crazy. Furthermore, he discovered that the energy was running and consuming some inexplicable substances in his body, or more precisely, in his mind. The consumption of this inexplicable substance made his mind a bit dull and his thinking a bit sluggish. He felt that this was not worth it, so he stopped controlling his energy and let it flow naturally with his cultivation. Sure enough, as he stopped controlling the speed of operation, those uncomfortable feelings quickly disappeared. After discovering that everything was normal, Xingyun devoted himself wholeheartedly to cultivation. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. Infinite Buddha. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What Xingyun didn't know was that when Xingyun's spiritual consciousness was first formed and released outside, a trace of his spiritual consciousness was sucked in by the relics he wore on his body. The relics are a vast and boundless space, like a world. In this world, there are all kinds of mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas, and there is also a rotation of sun, moon, and stars in the sky. But what's strange is that this world is barren, silent and devoid of any living creatures. The sun, moon, and stars in the sky are also gray and dim. And in the air at the center of the world, a huge cluster of light is suspended there. Various runes appear in the light cluster, some as big as planets, while others are as small as sand grains, and they are rapidly moving along a mysterious trajectory. Suddenly, an extremely small bright light flew towards the light cluster and was instantly sucked into it. The light suddenly lit up, and the runes within the light moved at an extremely fast speed. After a long time, the light cluster dimmed and the runes slowed down, restoring everything to its original state. However, the light cluster and runes were slightly dimmer than before, as if something had consumed its energy. Billions of years have passed, finally arrived, but so what? Anyway, even so, if he could come in, I wouldn't mind meeting him. Whispering sounds emanated from the light cluster. Of course, Xingyun knew nothing about all of this. At noon the next day, Xingyun naturally withdrew from cultivation. Now he no longer needs an alarm to remind him. With the improvement of his cultivation level, he can independently control the cultivation time. After quitting the cultivation, Xingyun stood up and walked towards the kitchen. Although he had achieved some success in his cultivation, he had not yet reached the level of clearing the valley and still needed to replenish some food. But just a few steps away, he smelled a slightly sour smell, and he realized it was coming from him. He quickly checked and found that his body was wrapped in a faint, slightly black-yellow, sticky substance all over. He knows that it is the improvement of his realm, the impurities eliminated by his body. He quickly rushed into the bathroom and thoroughly rinsed from head to toe. He couldn't wear the clothes anymore, so he quickly threw them into the washing machine and washed them, then cooled them down on the balcony. While taking a shower and undressing, he naturally took off the brocade bag that contained relics. He remembered that he hadn't studied relics for a long time, and now that he has developed spiritual consciousness, he plans to use it to check. Of course, he didn't have much hope. Because he guessed that Xuanzi must have also examined it with spiritual consciousness. He just wants to reassure himself. Thinking of this, Xingyun hesitated to eat and returned to his bedroom. He took out the relic from his brocade bag and silently dropped his spiritual consciousness onto it. Unexpectedly, as soon as his spiritual consciousness landed on the relics, his eyes turned black. Then, suddenly, his eyes lit up, and he found himself in a strange space. Moreover, Xingyun discovered that his state was a cluster of light. "You're here." Before he could recover, a voice appeared in his ear. "Who?" Xingyun was shocked and quickly searched around. But he didn't notice any figure. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." The sound continued to ring in Xingyun's ears. Xingyun only then realized that the sound was coming from the sky. He quickly looked up. This sight really surprised him. How could there be such a huge light cluster, and there were countless runes on it, each of which appeared extremely mysterious. "Excuse me, where is this and how do I address you?" Long Xingyun spoke in shock and asked. "This is the world within the relics, which were originally cultivated within my body. You can call me the Infinite Buddha." Guantuan answered. "Can you bring me next to you? It's a bit awkward talking to you like this." "Okay." Later, the scenery before Long Xingyun changed and he came to the side of the huge light cluster. Beside the light cluster, Long Xingyun increasingly felt the vastness of the light cluster. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 10. Heavenly Punishment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The relics are the things within your body. How could you be inside here, and I see that it is so dilapidated. So why is that? Long Xingyun asked curiously. I fell into such a situation all because of my momentary curiosity. Curious for a moment. Yes, just a moment of curiosity. Listen to me and you speak slowly. Subsequently, the Infinite Buddha explained the causes and consequences of all of this to Long Xingyun. Due to his innate talent and extremely long cultivation time, the Infinite Buddha had already reached the pinnacle of this world before he fell into desolation, with only a few people having cultivation comparable to his. I thought that at his level, he had reached the end of his cultivation. I don't want to unexpectedly gain knowledge that there is another world outside of this world while practicing and realizing. This gave him the motivation to cultivate again, as he practiced diligently while searching for a path to the outside world. But he has been searching for billions of years, but has not found a way out. But during this period, he met someone who shared the same interests as him. This person is known as the Spirit Void Dao Zun, and is also a great master who has reached the pinnacle of cultivation. The two of them had been searching for their way for many years without success, but they were curious and eager for the outside world. After much contemplation, they found an impossible solution. That is to break the sky. They want to break the world that has trapped them and come out of this world. Both of them are swift and decisive people, they can do whatever they want, and they immediately take action. They found a place in the world they thought was relatively weak, and then exerted all their cultivation to attack. But just as they were about to break through, it was unclear what rules were triggered or whether their crazy behavior angered the existing world. Countless heavenly punishments came upon them in a state of annihilation. Although the Infinite Buddha has already cultivated relics within his body and opened up a world, the time it took to open up the world is too short, and the power he possesses cannot compare with the current world. So he didn't support for a moment, and his body was destroyed by the heavenly punishment, while the Shiriko had already opened up a world internally, and the rules of the two worlds cancelled out, allowing everything to survive. And his soul, without physical support, began to dissipate rapidly. Coupled with the destruction of the heavenly punishment, his situation became extremely dangerous. The Infinite Buddha dared not neglect it. He wrapped his soul in the remaining soul power, as well as his dilapidated spiritual consciousness, and quickly fled towards the relics. Fortunately, at this point, the heavenly punishment has come to an end. Before entering the relics, the Infinite Buddha blessed the soul and made several soul seeds, using secret techniques to reflect his imprints in the soul seeds, and then using soul power to forcefully throw them around. This is his last resort to save his life, his last chance to be reborn. After entering the relics, the soul of the Infinite Buddha is on the verge of extinction, and his soul power will also be exhausted. He can only offer sacrifices to the living beings in the world of relics, in order to repair spiritual consciousness, supplement soul power, and cultivate the soul. But the soul lacks physical support and cultivation is extremely difficult. He uses all kinds of secret techniques and sacrifices countless creatures, but can only maintain the status quo of the soul. Fortunately, this is within the relics. If it were outside, he might have died long ago. In the end, he could only rely on those few soul seeds for hope. But he knew that his hope of resurrection was very slim. Because there are several factors that constrain his resurrection. Firstly, soul seeds cannot survive outside for a long time. They need to quickly integrate into the body of living beings, only in this way can soul seeds be inherited. The imprint within the soul seed can only support 10 reincarnations of creatures. If the imprint cannot be activated during the 10 reincarnations, it will completely disappear. Activating the imprint is also extremely difficult, and the creatures that obtain the soul seed must cultivate to a certain level in order to activate the imprint. Secondly, due to the constraints of his soul, he cannot see the situation outside of the relics, nor can he actively communicate with the outside world. Fortunately, he built a formation in the relics. Whenever a person with a mark is very close to the relics will react autonomously, which can attract the attention of the person with the mark, so that he will not miss the opportunity to be reborn. But all of this is an external reaction of the relics, and the infinite Buddha is unaware within the relics. And he can only do one thing, which is that when there is spiritual consciousness approaching the relics, he can use a secret method to inhale a trace of spiritual consciousness to confirm whether it is a soul seed reincarnation. He cannot communicate with the outside world in any way, he can only passively wait. Only those who have reincarnated soul seeds can enter the relics, and there is no way for others to enter it. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.